Cult leader sentenced to 60 years in prison. Cult mum says she had no participation in the murder of her own children, and Shelley Miscavige still missing a 62nd birthday. Hello listeners, and welcome to this week's Cult News. I'm your speaker Casey, host of the Cult Vault podcast, and if you find this content helpful or interesting, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. And if you want to support the show, you can find me at patreon.com/thecultvault, where you can sign up for as little as £1 a month. And now, on to the news. The Daily Mail has reported this week that Ginger Duggar, known from the popular TV show 19 Kids and Counting, has spoken out in various interviews and in writing, describing her upbringing as cult-like, with her parents' devotion to Bill Gothard's IBLP, the Institute for Basic Life Principles, which has also been described in its own right as cult-like itself. The article goes on to state, Ginger Duggar has spoken out to slam her ultra-religious parents' harmful beliefs while comparing her famous family to a cult. In a wide-ranging new interview, the 19 Kids and Counting star, aged 29, laid bare the lasting trauma of her incredibly strict upbringing, revealing that she was left crippled with anxiety and terrified of the outside world, as a result of the rigid cult-like rules she was forced to follow as a child. With Ginger Duggar talking about her brother Josh Duggar, who was recently arrested and charged, according to the Daily Mail, for having child pornography. I would like to state here that the correct way to say this is child sexual abuse material. I received a message from a listener the other day regarding my R. Kelly episode, which is out now on the podcast feed, where I quote an article detailing a recording of Kelly having sex with an underage girl. I would like to state that I do not agree with this language. Sex with an underage girl is rape. And from now on, I will make a point to correct this language even when I am quoting from the media. So thank you to the person who sent this feedback to me. Oxygen.com reported this week that prosecutors were calling for a life sentence for cult leader Lawrence Ray, stating that Ray took sadistic pleasure in his emotional, physical, sexual and financial abuse of his victims. YahooNews.com has reported that the crimes of Lawrence Ray and the first-hand testimonies of those who were subjected to his abuse will be speaking out in an upcoming Hulu documentary titled Stolen Youth Inside the Cult at Sarah Lawrence, which will premiere on the 9th of February. A few days after this news, reports came out that Lawrence Ray has in fact been sentenced to 60 years in prison for crimes including racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, forced labor, and more, according to justice.gov. In Idaho news, updates on the Lori Valor and Chad Daybell court case as it picks up again. In the last part of 2022, the trial was put on hold for a second time as Valor was deemed unfit to stand trial, her competency in question yet again. Now the case is moving through the legal system, with Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell standing trial for the murder of Vallow's two children, 16-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old JJ Vallow, along with charges in connection to Chad Daybell's late wife, Tammy Daybell, and the circumstances around her death. The history of this case is wrapped up in extremist LDS religious teachings, which were skewed by Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow with cult-like aspects, which I have covered in detail in the very early episodes of the Cult Vault podcast. Prosecutors opposed the couple's wish to have a strategy meeting together, and now there are reports coming out that the pair are no longer making eye contact with one another in the courtroom, and that Lori Vallow is claiming that she had no participation in the deaths of her two children. The Guardian released a segment this week on James Edward Baker, also known as Father Yode, and the cult that he created named the Source Family, a 1970s psychedelic cult with crippling control measures and sometimes fatal rules and restrictions that existed in the Hollywood Hills. It is good to see historical groups being covered so that we can understand and educate ourselves after the fact. I have covered the Source Family in a Patreon episode that is available for patrons today. Vulture.com has reported this week on the recent events that took place at this year's Golden Globes. One of the hosts of the event, Jared Carmichael, held up 3 Golden Globe trophies and jokingly asked if he could exchange them for Shelley Miscavige, the missing wife of the Church of Scientology leader David Miscavige, who has been missing himself now for some time as various attempts have been made to serve him with legal papers. Shelley Miscavige has not been seen by the public for 19 years, and no solid proof has ever been given of her whereabouts or her well-being. Former Scientologist turned whistleblower and activist Mike Rinder took to Twitter this week on Shelley Miscavige's 62nd birthday, asking for people to retweet in an effort to locate the missing lady, stating that there should be an inquiry because this is not North Korea. CNN has reported this week on the sudden passing of Lisa Marie Presley, the only child of Elvis Presley, and a former Scientologist who died of reported heart failure only a few days after appearing at the Golden Globe Awards in support of Austin Butler, who portrayed her father in a successful biopic that won him a Golden Globe Award. Presley was only aged 54 years old when she passed away and had suffered multiple tragedies in the years leading up to her death, including the death of her son in 2020. Cult expert Rick Allen Ross took to Twitter to comment on how Presley had plans to come forward exposing Scientology before her untimely death. May her legacy live on in the activism work that is taking place around the world today. KCUR.org has reported that the boarding school in Stockton will finally be closed down after months of back-and-forth decision-making. The article states dozens of former students have gone public with their allegations of physical, mental, and sexual abuse at the Stockton-based Christian residential facility, which opened in 1996. For the last few years, Agape has been at the forefront of the state's reckoning over abuse allegations at unlicensed faith-based boarding schools. And the school itself has decided to stop providing a service. This is a huge victory in the fight against the troubled teen industry, but the war is far from over. Hopefully, other schools will take note from Agape and permanently close their own doors. Perhaps governments will begin implementing nationwide regulations with licensing requirements and mandatory vetting and credentials for every staff member and therapist. But we will keep our eyes and ears open for positive developments. The BBC reported this week that disgraced kickboxer and social media influencer Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan, who were arrested recently on human trafficking charges, will be detained in Romania until at least February 27th. Although Tate's misogynistic and toxic platforms are still thriving while he is imprisoned, due to other people posting regularly on his behalf across multiple platforms, it is my hope that the justice system will come through in this case and those victimised by Tate and his cronies will have some form of justice and their voices heard. That is the end of this week's cult news. A little side note, if you are interested in cults and cult podcasts, then please head over to Reddit, r/cult podcasts, where you can find the newest episodes from all of the podcasts that are releasing content on the subject of cults and coercive control. It's a friendly and active subreddit, and we'd love more content creators to get involved, and we'd love to hear about other shows that we don't know about yet. So please head on over there, join our subreddit, and put some posts up. If you are somebody that is creating work, then we encourage you to come and promote yourself over here on the sub so that we can all celebrate our work together. If you find this content helpful or interesting, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button for updates on new content. I'm your speaker, Casey, host of the Cult Vault podcast.